A man came to my door asking for my missing roommate. Then I saw the seam in his jaw. The last thing my sister's roommate ever said to me was, "I think someone's been watching the house." Her name was Avani. She said it over a bowl of cold cereal at 2 in the morning, her face lit by the blue glow of her phone. She worked the graveyard shift processing patient files at the county hospital, so her hours were a mess of twilight and artificial light. I just grunted something non-committal. In a town this small, everyone watches everyone. It's the local pastime. She went missing on a Tuesday. 1 minute she was there, leaving her favorite ceramic mug, the one with the chipped rim, drying by the sink. The next, she was gone. Her car was still in the driveway. Her wallet was on her nightstand. The only thing missing was Avani herself. We called it a disappearance because vanished felt too much like a magic trick, and whatever this was, it wasn't magic. The usual routine played out. The flyers with her smiling, slightly too bright driver's license photo. The cops with their heavy sighs and notepads full of nothing. The casseroles from neighbors who looked at my sister, Sloan, and me, with a pity that felt like an accusation. The town's Facebook group became a cesspool of theories for a week, then a memorial page for 2. Then it fell silent. The flyers curled and bleached in the sun, Avani's smile fading into the paper. The real wrongness started after the silence set in. It started with a smell. Not rot, not decay. It was the sharp, metallic tang of old pennies, the taste you get in your mouth right before a nosebleed. It clung to the back of my throat and lived in the upstairs hallway, a ghost of a scent that you could never quite pin down. Sloan bought a dozen of those plug-in air fresheners, the ones that smell like aggressive cinnamon, but it didn't help. It just made the house smell like a holiday haunted by old blood. Then came the noises. A soft, wet shuffling from inside the walls, like someone dragging a bag of damp laundry through the crawl space. Footsteps on the porch that would stop dead right at the door, followed by a long, deep silence that was somehow louder than the steps themselves. One night, I woke up to the sound of our porch swing creaking. A slow, methodical rhythm. Squeak, 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 squeak. I crept to the window, my heart a cold stone in my chest, and peered through the blinds. The swing was moving, empty. It swayed back and forth in the dead, still summer air, as if under the weight of an invisible body. I watched it for an hour, until the sun started to bleed over the horizon, and it never stopped. I started digging. I couldn't help it. I fell down a rabbit hole of regional forums, dusty old blog posts about unsolved disappearances going back 50 years. It was mostly junk. But then I found a cluster of stories, all from different decades, all within a 100-mile radius of us. They didn't call it a skin man. The locals had a different name for it. They called it the echo. The stories said it wasn't a ghost, not exactly. It was a parasite. It finds someone on the fringes, someone quiet, someone people might not miss right away. It studies them. It learns their patterns, their habits. It learns their name. Then it hollows them out and steps inside their life. But the stories all agreed on one critical point, a rule repeated like a prayer. It can't take. It has to be given. You have to invite it. Not with words necessarily. You just have to give it something freely. A glass of water. A piece of information. The time of day. Any small act of generosity was a key turning in a lock. That's what was in my head the night of the first knock. It wasn't a loud knock. Just 3 soft, polite taps on the old wood of the front door. Tap, tap, tap. So gentle you could have imagined it. Sloan looked up from her laptop, annoyed. Pizza's not till 7. A man's voice drifted through the door. It was maddeningly normal. Sorry to bother you. I'm looking for Avani? The blood drained from my face. I felt my stomach clench into a fist. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. A man stood on our porch, backlit by the setting sun. He was wearing a plain gray hoodie, his hands shoved in his pockets. He looked fine, nondescript. He could have been anyone. She's not here, I called out, my voice tight. Oh, he said. The disappointment in his voice sounded so genuine. Okay, it's just, my car broke down a ways back. My phone's dead. Any chance I could just use yours for a minute to call a tow? I almost did it. The sheer boring normalcy of the request almost made me undo the deadbolt. But then I remembered the forums. It has to be given. Sorry, I said, my back pressed against the door. No, I heard him sigh. All right, thanks anyway. I listened to his footsteps retreat down the porch steps and didn't breathe again until they faded completely. Sloane just rolled her eyes. God, Milo. You could have just handed him the phone through the mail slot. A few nights later, he was back. I saw him from the kitchen window, talking to our neighbor, Mr. Henderson, the old man who spent his evenings watering his wilting rose bushes. I watched as Mr. Henderson laughed, gestured with his hose, and then went inside. He came back out with a tall glass of what looked like iced tea and handed it to the man. The man took a long drink, smiled, and handed the empty glass back. He said something that made Mr. Henderson clap him on the shoulder. As the man turned to leave, the porch light caught his profile. There was a faint line running from his ear down his jaw, tight and pale, like a badly stitched seam on a cheap suit. My breath caught in my throat. The next day, Mr. Henderson's car was gone. His newspapers piled up on the porch. The police did a wellness check. They found the house empty. The only thing out of place was a glass sitting on the kitchen counter, with a dark, rust-colored ring at the bottom. I found Avani's journal a week later, shoved in the pocket of an old coat in the back of her closet. Her handwriting was a frantic, spidery scrawl. She'd been sketching a face with no features, just a blank oval, over and over. And on the last page, she'd written one sentence, underlined 3 times. Don't give it anything. Not your name, not your time, not a goddamn thing. Sloane refused to believe me. She said I was grieving, that I was letting my imagination run wild. She said I was turning a tragedy into a ghost story because it was easier than accepting that Avani was just gone. We fought. It was ugly. She started sleeping with her door locked. Then came the scratching. It was late. A storm was rolling in, the wind rattling the window frames. It wasn't a knock this time. It was the sound of fingernails dragging slowly, deliberately, down the length of the door. A long, dry shriek that made every hair on my body stand on end. Sloane and I both froze in the living room. Then we saw it. A thin, white envelope being pushed through the mail slot. It landed silently on the welcome mat. Neither of us wanted to get it. I finally did, my hand shaking. Inside wasn't a photo. It was Avani's driver's license. It was pristine, not a scratch on it. I flipped it over in my trembling fingers. How? How did he have this? I lunged for the window, my heart hammering against my ribs, and looked outside. He was there. Sitting on our porch swing, rocking gently back and forth in that same awful rhythm. He was humming. It was a song Avani always hummed while she was cooking. A little off-key melody I hadn't been able to get out of my head for weeks. He looked up then, as if he could feel me watching him, and his eyes locked onto mine. A slow, easy smile spread across his face. Milo, he called out, his voice carrying easily through the glass. It was so reasonable, so friendly. Your sister told me you were worried. I just wanted to bring this by. I found it down the road. He held up a small silver locket on a delicate chain, Avani's locket, the one she never ever took off. Can I come in? He asked, his voice dropping a little, becoming more intimate. We can talk about it. He stood up and stepped into the cone of light from the porch lamp. His face was the same, but it wasn't. The skin on his cheek seemed to shimmer for a second, like a heat haze off asphalt. It was like his features were a projection on an unstable surface. He smiled again, a wide, placid smile that didn't touch his eyes. And his eyes, they weren't his. In the dim, yellow light, for just a fraction of a second, they were Avani's. I saw her in there. I saw her pupils, wide and black with a terror so profound it felt like it was going to stop my own heart. It was a silent, trapped scream from behind a stranger's face. I yelled something, I don't even know what. Sloane screamed. We scrambled away from the window, falling over each other. I fumbled my phone out, my fingers like clumsy sausages, and dialed 911. By the time the cops got there, maybe 5 minutes later, the porch was empty. He was gone. The only thing left was the silver locket lying on the doormat. The police didn't believe us. Two hysterical people in a house that smelled like cinnamon and pennies, ranting about a man with the wrong eyes. They logged it as a possible prank. A cruel one, they said, but nothing more. That was the night my sister decided she couldn't live there anymore. She packed her bags and moved in with a friend 3 towns over. She said she couldn't stand the way I looked at every shadow, the way I flinched at every knock on the door. I'm still here. I can't leave. It feels like abandoning Avani all over again. I don't sleep much. I sit in the dark and listen to the house settle. Sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I swear I can hear that porch swing creaking. I still smell the copper in the hallway. I see a man in a gray hoodie on a street corner and my blood runs cold. I don't know what the echo wants or why it chose her. I just know it's still out there, wearing a face that isn't its own, practicing a smile. It's looking for a way in. It's patient. All it needs is one small kindness, one moment of trust. It can't take. It can only be given. For God's sake, whatever you do, don't be generous with strangers.